Chapter 9, Lesson 6, Factor A, x squared plus bx plus c. So what we're going to talk about is we're going to now up this a notch. Previously we were working on problems like this, x squared plus 3x plus 2, and we would figure out that this is going to be or x plus 2, and then x plus 1, excuse me. And we knew that because we were using the method previously that we talked about, the product sum method. So now we're going to change that a little bit. We're going to use what's called the AC method, because this is how it's going to look now. 2x squared minus 7x plus 3. So we can't use the product sum method anymore because we've got that pesky number 2 in front of the x squared. So what we're going to have to do is instead use multiply out some terms here. So a's value is going to be 2, because that's in front of the x squared part. If you look here, there's the a value. C's value is going to be 3. When I multiply them together, I get 6. If you notice, I know that there's a negative sign right there. So it's actually going to have to be negative numbers, don't forget that. So the possible ways of adding together, then I take that AC and I figure out the factors that'll work. And so the factors for 6 are going to be, well, 3 and 2. Remember, it's negative 3, negative 2, and then negative 6 and negative 1. Because it has to be positive in the end, because remember that plus sign. So the only way to add those two up is you're going to add these two up and you end up with this right here. That's how you end up with the 7, or the negative 7 there. And that's what this step is talking about here. So now we're going to rewrite the polynomial, splitting up the terms by splitting up the bx term. And that's what happens right here. So instead, it's going to be 2x squared, just like it was before, but now I'm going to take this value of b, so it's going to be minus 6x. Now I'm going to take this value here, negative 1, as I know that's what the two factors have to be for the AC method. So it's going to be minus 1x. Then I'm going to have that last part, which is just going to be plus. And then it's plus 3 in the end. So now what I have to do is I have to take some numbers out here and make it so that I go ahead and make it so that the terms look the same. So I'm going to factor this. When I factor that, I'm going to end up with 2x times x minus 3. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense, because what's happening is I'm taking out that value there. I'm taking out 2x from this part here. And then when I take out negative 1 from this part here and pull it off to the side, if I do negative 1 here, I'm going to end up with x minus 3. So that's the way that this works. When I take that negative 1 out, I have that value there. It's a subtraction problem. So what's going to happen is when I take that, it's going to be 2x minus 1, because that's where I got the 2 from, minus 1. And then that's going to be multiplied by x minus 3. And then I can go ahead and figure out the factors, or figure out the roots based on that. Let's try another one here. So a's value here is going to be 3. B's value is going to be 14. And c's value is going to be negative 5. So let's do 5 times, or negative 5 times 3. That's going to be negative 15. So where are the possibilities for negative 15? Oh, I got negative 15 times 1, 1 times negative 15. I've got negative 3 times 5, and negative 5 times 3. So those are the possible ways of getting 15. So when I add those two together, what's the one way that I get for that? And when I add those two factors together, the only way I can get that is by using, let's see, is by using this one. Oh, I went ahead and doubled this up. It's actually 1 or 15 times negative 1. So I doubled that twice. So that's actually the one I'm looking for. So it's going to be 15 and negative 1. So that's a really important part. So now we got to rewrite the trinomial. So that's how I'm going to rewrite it, because I just went ahead and put it in the steps that are like this. And I broke down that 14x into this term right here. So now I'm going to go ahead and regroup. So when I go ahead and I regroup, I can take care of taking that 3x out of that first couple of terms there, because what I'm doing is these two terms here I'm linking together, and I'm taking the 3x out of both of those. And then after that, I try and figure out what I can take out of there that'll end up with the same terms there, the same expression there. So that's x plus 5 is what I'm looking for. So when I divide this number by negative 1, I'm going to end up with these two things. And when I add them together, I end up with 3x minus 1. That's this part and this part. And then that's going to be times x plus 5. So hopefully this is starting to make sense. Let's do another one. So in this case here, what we're going to do is we're going to multiply the two numbers. So 3 times 22 is going to give me 66. And now I have to figure out a way of the factors of 66 that will give me a negative 5. So one of them has to be negative and one of them has to be positive. And the only two ones that come to my mind are, and there's going to be more negatives than positives, negative 11 and then positive 6. It's either that or 66 and 1 or 2 and 33, but those are too far off. So this is the one that works. So then what I do is I go ahead and rewrite it, 3x squared minus 11x plus 6x minus 22. So now I'm going to go ahead and factor these where I'm doing this here and then there. So let's see what happens here. When I do that, I end up with 3x. Actually, I don't even have 3x. Let me correct that. It's actually just going to be x, because I'm going to be left with 3x minus 11 then. So that's the first part. And then it's going to be plus. It's going to be 2 here, because the greatest common factor of these two is going to be 2. And it's going to be 3x minus 11. And that works out perfectly. So the answer is going to be x plus 2. That's from there and there, the x plus 2 part, times 3x minus 11. If you multiply it out, you'll see that that works. Let's do one other one quickly. So here we've got, we have to figure out 7 times 7 is equal to 49. And now we need to come up with, they're either both negative or positive. They're both going to be negative because look, we got the positive sign there, so they both have to be negative. Only a few ways of making 50, but only a couple ways of making 49. So one way is 7 and 7, that doesn't work, but 49, negative 49 and negative 1 does work. So then it's going to be 7x squared minus 49x minus 1x plus 7. So now, when I go ahead and I pull this out for this part here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide by 7x. So that's going to leave me with x minus 7. And then that's going to be minus, actually let's say plus, actually let's do it with minus instead. Minus, and then when I pull, what I can pull out of here is actually I'm going to pull out a minus 1, because that will change it to x minus 7, which is what I need. With the minus and the minus, that's going to end up being a plus 1. x minus 7. So now we got our x minus 7 piece, and it would still be this. So the answer is going to be 7x plus 1 times x minus 7. There we go.